For our project, we're going to be using some observational drawing skills to draw some of our favorite characters. You are going to need to select about 5 characters, whether they are from cartoons, comic books, video games. We're looking at drawn animation style characters. We're going to use a process in which we use simple shapes, usually circles, squares, or triangles, to help map out the parts of the character, to help us place items that identify that character in relationship to other parts. So if it's a animal or a dog, we're going to use some simple shapes to first plan out and map out the size and placement of the head compared to where the size and placement of the body is, compared to the size and placement of the arms, hands, legs, feet, and so forth. You're going to want a ruler and a pencil. We want to have our drawings somewhere around 3 inches by 4 inches. So I'm not going to make a perfect grid. What I'm going to do is mark about 3 inches. So I made a mark at the 0 and the 3. And then just using the ruler, and I'm just kind of eyeballing it to see where that mark is, how much distance from the edge of the ruler to the edge of the paper there is, and get about the same thing at the bottom. And just quickly make a line, and then again line up at this one. Look to see, again by eye, if my ruler is about the same distance. And I'm going to do that a couple times. That way I break my paper up into some smaller sections here. So again, just eyeballing the distance with that mark. So I'm going to go ahead and make 2 more marks while I have my ruler lined up there. And this is just a rough sketch of that 3-inch mark, and then I want to make some 4-inch marks. So I'm going to again lay my ruler down, and I'm going to make a mark at the 0 and the 4, and I have enough room to do 2 4-inch sections this way. So my paper obviously is longer than my ruler. So again, I'm just going to try and judge where that mark is. Try to get my ruler about the same distance from the edge of the paper, and draw a line there. Come down to this mark. Again, just try to judge the distance from this line and from the edge of the paper, and draw a line there. And then finally the last mark. So that gives me 8 spaces in which to practice this skill. So I'm looking at a character on my screen of my Chromebook, and I'm going to start using that mapping process. So this character has a lot of rounded body parts, and it is an animal. So I'm going to be using a lot of circles for this character. Circles and ovals. So looking at my image, I'm going to divide up the head of this animal into two sections because they have a very noticeable main skull area, and since it's an animal, it has a snout on it, and it's pretty noticeable over here. When I'm looking at my image and I'm creating the circle for what I call the main skull area, and I look at where the circle for that's representing the snout is, there's an overlap. I can visualize that overlap of this circle overlapping this one. But if you have troubles with it, even just take your pencil. You don't even have to touch your screen. But trace over the oval or circle that you are seeing for one part, and trace over the oval or circle you're seeing for another part, and you'll be able to see that overlap. From here, I'm going to use a little bit of a triangle for an upper body part, and then another circle down here for the lower body part. And this animal has a foot about here and a foot behind that, and they have a hand about in this area and a hand in this area. So notice I'm drawing this really, really light. So anytime you use this shape mapping process, you want to draw your lines really light so that you can slowly darken your lines as you add more details. So let me again demonstrate that with this up close. So again, I'm going to use a circle oval shape for the main skull of the animal. Going to use a circle over that gets overlapped to that first one for the snout. Looking at the body, I'm going to use a bit of a triangular shape, rectangular shape, and then another circle for the tail area. And then, as I said, they have one foot about here. There's another foot that gets overlapped up here. And then there's a hand here and here. And it's getting connected to the body with arms. Now this animal has ears. One's flipping up this way, and one is coming in this direction, maybe a little bit more back. So again, very light lines. Now that I have those, I'm going to start adding some detail. So this part of the skull connects to the nose area. And I want to make that a little bit more deeper curve. This then starts following that circle I created, but it hooks in here. They have a little bit of an upper lip. Then they're smiling. So they have an overlap of like the one corner of their mouth. And then this comes over here for the other corner of their mouth. Got the back of their skull. And it leads into their body. And here They have a very small chin, starts leading into their neck. In fact, I want to make this a little bit more narrow. For those ears, it's a very sharp curve. Goes back to the like that. And this one, it's going to get cut off a little bit. Comes wide like this. I'm going to go ahead and draw the rest of it up here. I might be able to piece that little part in another area for when we make these into our stickers. And they have a black nose over here. It's kind of like in this shape. And we got an eye. It's just represented as a line, and another eye because they're smiling. And in fact, I want to move that one up a little bit. I got it a little bit too low. Bring that up. Going to lighten up this line here where I made the neck area too wide. And I'm going to start into the body of this character. They have, since their leg is bent, there's a knee here. And right, kind of like in the middle of this curve, but it doesn't touch it, there's another line here that's going to represent like the back part of human, what would be your calf area. And this leads into that foot. And that foot overlaps that knee. And this other foot just sticks out a little bit here. So I'm starting to darken as I see more details. Now this animal chest comes down to its knee, and then that's where we start into the arms. So about here we have one arm to another. So even though I placed the circle here, I'm going to move the hand down just a little bit further away. They have 1, 2, 3 fingers and a thumb here. The thumb hooks around something like this into the first finger. Second finger is pretty rounded, and the third one hooks up like that. And then there is no line separating the body from the arm, so I'm going to get rid of that little bit of line I had there and get those connected. Then this arm is overlapped by the torso. It comes out. Again, there's 3 fingers here. There's 1, 2, 3, and a thumb. And that arm just goes directly into the thumb. And then we get the first overlapped by the next finger, overlapped by the third finger, and that then just connects to the arm. So I'm going to stop and kind of compare what is on screen, what I'm seeing, and I think I want to shorten this up a little tiny bit and start into the nose a little sooner and just round that up a little bit more. I want 2, and I'm going to come back to the feet with a little bit more detail. Hopefully by now you realize that this is an image of Snoopy. And now that I'm more confident and liking the look of my drawing of this character, I'm going to start darkening up my lines. Now this is an image of Snoopy dancing. So I have a little bit of a ghost image of his feet down here that I'm going to try to include. And there's at least one extra foot space here. I'm going to squeeze in as much as possible. And some action lines. So since this is going to be eventually turned into a sticker for our sketchbook, I can cut around all those lines. I don't need to have them independent of each other. I don't have to cut on my pencil lines when I cut out my sticker, because most stickers it's going to have that little bit of that border around it. And the only other thing I need for Snoopy here is his collar. So that is your process. You're going to pick a character. You're going to plan things out using simple shapes. In this case, I use a lot of ovals, but you could also possibly use squares and triangles. It depends on the shape of your character, the parts of your character. Once I have that, then I'm going to move on to use another character. And as you've seen with my other examples in class, whether it was me demonstrating to you or not, I've used the same process to create Luigi. I used the same process to create Dry Bones. I used the same process to create Papa Smurf and a My Little Pony. The same process to create Garfield, and the same process to create Scooby-Doo. And eventually, those will get transferred onto sticker paper, and we'll color them, laminate them with clear packing tape, and then these are ready to stick onto our sketchbook. So your beginning step is to use that mapping process to plan out and draw your characters. And again, if you have troubles with this, just keep on trying. It takes practice.